Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to Synchronicity Web TV. I am your astrologer and your host, Nadiya Shah, and this is your moment of synchronicity. Well, I'm just so excited today because I get to celebrate and welcome my friend, Samuel Reynolds. Now, Samuel and I go way back. You've seen him on my channel for a long time. I think the first time I had him on was probably like 2009 or 2010, right around there. And I've known him for that long. And he's just so good. Like, that's really it. He is a really good astrologer. If you check out his Instagram, his social media, Unlock Astrology, it is so insightful that I regularly share his stuff on my pages, on my Instagram stories, on my Facebook stories. This is just so brilliant. I mean, really, he's got this very unique voice, this wonderful perspective. He brings his spirituality, insights into the self, just really some of the best that astrology can be. Samuel embodies. And so I'm very, very excited that Samuel has agreed to come teach at Synchronicity University. And this video is publishing in the last days of April 2021. And so we have like 3 days left of choose your tuition rate, as low as just $5 a class. So to hear Samuel teach on the nodes for as low as just $5, I mean, that is pretty unheard of. That's an incredible rate. And it's on right now. Now, if you missed the choose your tuition rate, don't worry about that because you can still sign up for Samuel's class. He'll be teaching again in May of 2021 at Synchronicity University. You can find that and find out all about that at synchronicityuniversity.com. Link in the description below. Samuel, welcome.
Hello.
Thank you for being here, my friend.
Thank you for having me, Nadiya.
Oh my God.
Good to be back.
Yeah, it's so great to have you back because it's been a few years since you've been on my channel. But of course, we keep in touch on social media and
we work together.
Yes, and we work together in our volunteer work and stuff as well, giving back, being in service to astrology. So our paths continue to intertwine. And, you know, really, when I say that you're just one of the best out there, it really is. I mean, your writing is so beautiful. Your social media
thank you.
Have helped me. Like right now, we're having a Scorpio full moon opposite Uranus. And I'm feeling it. And your post about that helped me so much. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad.
Yeah, that's when astrology, I know, is at its best, when it actually reaches people's hearts. But you're going to be teaching at my school, which I'm so excited. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Of course. So you are going to be teaching a class called Roping in Your Lunar Nodes.
Yes.
So what does that mean? Why do you call it roping in your lunar nodes? Well, first, what are the lunar nodes? And then why do you call it roping in?
So the lunar nodes are intersection points of the moon with the ecliptic, which means the sun's apparent orbit around the earth. Now we know the sun doesn't literally go around the earth, but we know and recognize that the moon does go around the earth. So at the points of intersection, as the moon is ascending, that's what we call the north node. And as it's descending at that intersection point with the ecliptic is the descending node or the south node. And so those particular nodes, even though we can't see them, become points of connection with others, and then points of connections with our sense of purpose for ourselves. Some would say in terms of our intention related to this particular life, but we might say ways in which we might also build our character. And that usually happens along a particular axis, you know, along, say, Aries to Libra, or right now we're dealing with Sagittarius and Gemini. So the north node is in Gemini, the south node is in Sagittarius. They are an exact opposite by degree and sign. So those pairs become ways by which we can understand a larger sense of purpose, but our own personal purpose based on when we were born.
And I think it's really interesting. One of my books is all about the nodes as well. So I love the nodes. I feel like they are so powerful to work with in astrology. What is so interesting to me is that all planets have nodes.
Yes,
all
right.
planets have these turning points, but it really is the nodes of the moon that are such a focus in astrology. And so I just think that's so fascinating that the symbol of the moon is a symbol of emotion. It's a symbol of home. And that the nodes, the higher karmic purpose is one way to describe it, the nodes of that moon are what we focus on so much. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the other part of when I say roping in is also dealing with another nuance of that, which is also called the bendings. And those are the intersection points to that intersection. Really, it's more so where we look at the other axis by which we have turning points or a point of possible crisis in someone's life. So let's go with that example I gave. Sagittarius, or I should say North Node in Gemini, South Node in Sagittarius. Then the nodal bendings for that would be along the Pisces Virgo axis, right? With either one being the north bending, right, or the south bending. So I would be talking with people on how to identify the north bending and what that would mean, and what the south bending and what that means. So that's kind of the idea of roping them in so that we have a better understanding of how the nodes work in our lives and also in particular cycles. So for instance, one important cycle is when we have our nodal return, roughly around 19 years old. And then another big one that happens in our later 20s, just before our Saturn return, is the nodal opposition, when the nodes are opposite to each other. So if you were born with the North Node in Gemini and the South Node in Sagittarius, it would be a reversal. The North Node would be in Sagittarius and the South Node would be in Gemini. And that happens for the first time around 27 years old.
It's so interesting. You're talking about this bending. This is
or I should say the second time, because the first time is actually when you're 9. But yeah, the first big one when you're an adult is at 27.
Yeah, when you have some agency and considering all the other things happening, like the Saturn return, like the progressed lunar return, all of that is happening right around the same time, which makes that time frame so powerful for so many people.
Exactly. And the 27 Club, we have people who have passed away around at 27. And my thought on that is it's really an underappreciated and rather sensitive time. We talk more about the Saturn return. Some astrologers talk about the progressed lunar return. But I think this particular nodal reversal or nodal opposition is one of the critical points where we're dealing with both how we connect to others and then the experience of how we relate to our sense of purpose. Some would say in terms of embracing or dealing with our karma. So that's another way in which we can start conceptualizing this important moment.
And so how does the bending of the nodes fit into this sense of accepting our karma, if you will?
So we may have particular planets at the bendings. So for example, Drew Barrymore has her sun at what we would describe as the north bending. So getting a firmer sense of her identity at a very critical point in her life, considering that she also struggled with drug addiction, alcohol use and things like that. And then I think just generally feeling like she wanted to gain a better sense of herself since she was part of the Barrymore legacy and family. And she started acting at a very early age, I think as early as 6. I think she was struggling to find her own sun, her own sense of identity. So at the north bending, that became a way and a gateway by which she could find a funnel toward herself, what she needed to increase and develop.
That's incredible. And so these bendings ultimately give us a pathway in order to then greater understand the nodes themselves.
Yeah, where we need to kind of have, where we may have some things that, are parts of our chart that we may learn to surrender more or discipline in a very structured way. That's going to be more related to the south bending, where there are other things or the planets, other points that we need to kind of accentuate more that may fall at the north bending. And then, of course, there's the north and south axis, right? In terms of the north bending and the south bending. So we have those to consider. And there even one other thing I might throw in related to the class in terms of roping them is if you're born near an eclipse, like Donald Trump. Donald Trump was born within hours of an eclipse. So he had the moon at the south node, and then he had the sun at the north node along with Uranus. So there are ways in which he naturally found an ability to integrate some dimension of those significations in his chart.
And so with the bending, this is going to be a brand new technique for a lot of people out there.
Yes.
Yeah. And so
yeah, if they're not familiar with like horary astrology or other forms of astrology, this may be something that will be brand new. So it's exciting.
It is so exciting that people get to learn this brand new technique and see how it's been experienced and realized in their lives. And so this is, your perspective is going to be based on the natal chart?
Yes. So I'm going to be looking at natal examples. I may also mention horary examples, not to teach people horary, but more so to show in a different form of astrology what that might highlight. So usually when we talk about in horary, and just a quick note about that, horary is when we do a chart for a question, or, you know, when someone has a burning question or burning issue, and then there's a chart for that, which can work in tandem with the natal chart, but it can work also very much independently. So with that form of astrology, if we had planets at the bendings, they would highlight a crisis point, a change, and they would give us additional information about what's going on in relation to the question. So in a natal chart, it's a similar sensibility, but it's more long-term because it plays out in the life.
And how can people identify where their bending is?
Oh, that'll be part of the class, and I'll have to demonstrate it.
That's one of the trade secrets that you're going to learn.
Yeah, well, it also would be simpler to kind of be able to show people than to describe. And one of the things I'm most excited about, if I could pat myself on the back a little bit, is that as I learned it, it was often explained in a very complicated way. Like you find the north bending going counterclockwise, and you find the south bending going clockwise. And I think I have sussed out an easier method, if people are willing to use their imaginations a little bit, where you can determine what's the north bending, what's the south bending.
Well, that's going to be incredible to learn a brand new technique, but also the interpretation of the technique. I mean, just all of it coming together can be very powerful. And I know that you're such an experienced teacher. Like, that's the thing too. That's how I met you. And I asked to interview you because you were teaching at the SOTA conference that was put on by the great Donna Van Toen. But yes, so you've been doing this for a while. Obviously, just the way I'm talking to you now and the way you're explaining things, I know that things that otherwise, and techniques that otherwise could be complicated for people, become really easy to grasp because of how you teach them.
Well, my goal is to emphasize the practicality, and also, just so people are aware, I do make mention of how generally people talk about the nodes, more so related to karma, but that isn't my preference or my take. So I try to think about it still with some attention to the spiritual and understanding how we deal with things philosophically, but more so in the pragmatic and more without kind of just tying the node to karma. Because one thing that many people may not know is that the notion of tying strictly the north or south node to karma is really new in Western astrology. That's something that's just within the last 60 years. That's not something that was previously done. Some might say, wasn't that true in Indian astrology or Vedic astrology? No, with Vedic astrology, karma is tied into the whole chart. And the other thing to kind of note is there are at least 5 levels of karma. So, you know, when we talk about karma, I respect that tradition enough not to talk about it because 1, that's not my native tradition. I need to learn more about it. 3, there are different ways in which we can talk about karma.
Yeah, you're always so respectful, though. I will say, I love that. You can like voice all kinds of opinions and different perspectives, but still do it in a way that's respectful and well thought out. And I think that humility is so important too. Of course, we're not going to know all about every single tradition. Earlier today, I was interviewing Rachel Schwartz, and her interview is going to be published right around the same time that you're watching this with Samuel. But Rachel Schwartz does Kabbalistic astrology, and students were asking about that. It's one of those topics that fascinates people. And I knew I had to get somebody else to teach it because that is going to be somebody else's strength. They're really going to shine in that.
Right.
And it's interesting to me, like you are going to be bringing this perspective. You're the one who's going to be teaching on this technique that really not a lot of people even know about or integrating into their practice, but you're the right person to teach it. You're the right person to teach perspective.
I hope so. And yes, I believe that it's true. I've been researching this for a number of years, especially when I realized that karma wasn't my thing or my language to use. I had to reformulate how I thought about the nodes. And so I went down a rabbit hole of looking at what other astrologers have said. Obviously, having studied more on my own from, my early years of learning astrology, studying at the metaphorical knee of people like Jan Spiller and Dane Rudger, but I had to formulate more my own sensibility.
I love it. And so what was your journey to astrology? How did you become?
Oh, trying to disprove it. I thought it was like the greatest crock of, I could ever, muster or see, only to discover that's the real thing. So I spent 10 years trying to disprove astrology.
Wow. And now how long have you been a professional astrologer though? You've been around for a while.
I've been practicing since 2002. I've been studying astrology since 1990.
Wow. So you're coming up to your anniversary.
Yeah. Or past my anniversary. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of them is past, but one of them is coming up 2022. So that'll be really exciting for you too, right? These milestones, these turning points to see how far you've come.
It's true. Yeah. It's very true.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
I'm so looking forward to having you at Synchronicity University. Thank you so much, Samuel. And let me just say once again to everybody out there, remember, Samuel is coming to Synchronicity University. You can find out more about his talk at synchronicityuniversity.com. If you're watching this in April 2021, you get a chance to choose your tuition rate as low as just $5 a class to learn from brilliant astrologers like Samuel as part of the May 2021 speaker series. Link is in the description below. And I'll also link to Samuel's website and everything so that you can find him. And you can see for yourself why I love his work, why I love his writing, why I love his social media. I love his Instagram. I get so much inspiration from it. I get so much out of it. And I'm sure that you guys will too. Samuel, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can't wait.
So much. For so long, you've been part of my vision, or you've been part of my journey. You've been part of my path for so many years.
We're friends.
Yeah, we love each other. We're friends. Yes, we're part of the same astro family, and it feels like family with you. And I am always so grateful for that.
Same here.
Well, thank you everybody for watching. And until we connect again, take care. Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.